The certified letter arrived on a Tuesday morning, demanding I pay $47,000 in fines for living in a house I'd owned for 12 years. The problem? I wasn't even in their HOA. Picture this, I'm in my kitchen, coffee mug steaming in my hand, staring at legal papers that might as well have been written in ancient Greek. Outside my window stands Karen Whitmore, HOA President Extraordinaire, pointing at my house from her perfectly manicured lawn like she's directing an invasion. Her grass sparkled with morning dew, the kind that gets measured with rulers to meet community standards. I took another sip of coffee and thought, lady, you just made the biggest mistake of your life. What would you do if someone tried to force you into an HOA you never joined? Drop your wildest HOA horror story below. I guarantee mine will top them. All dot. My name's Garrett Mitchell. 12 years ago, I thought I'd bought my slice of the American dream. Turns out, I'd walked straight into a nightmare designed by a woman who makes dictators look reasonable. In 2011, fresh out of the army, after 2 tours in Afghanistan, I used my VA loan to buy 2.3 acres of pure freedom. The 1970s ranch house sits on the original Hendricks farmland from before the subdivisions, when this area was still cow pastures and common sense. Willow Creek runs between my property and the upscale Willowbrook Estates development. That creek was my daily reminder that some boundaries are set by nature, not lawyers. I'm an independent contractor, electrical, plumbing, whatever keeps food on the table for me and my 16-year-old daughter, Emma. After my divorce, this place became our fortress of sanity. I built a workshop where the scent of pine sawdust mixes with WD-40, and every morning I breathe clean air you'll never find in subdivisions with their chemical lawns. Emma loves it here, space to run, creek access for catching tadpoles, and a dad who's actually home instead of deployed. Then came Karen Whitmore, the human embodiment of an HOA fever dream. She's 52, drives a spotless white Lexus that's never touched mud, and rules her $800,000 McMansion like Marie Antoinette with a measuring tape. 6 years as HOA president have turned her into a suburban surveillance specialist. She knows every neighbor's garbage day and how often their lawns are mowed. Her husband, Brad, isn't just a bystander. He's the county planning commissioner. That will matter later, but for now, file it under massive conflict of interest. Our first encounter happened at my mailbox one Tuesday morning. Karen marched across the street, wearing pearls and indignation, clutching her clipboard like a weapon. The crunch of gravel under her designer heels announced her arrival, like incoming artillery. Your workshop violates neighborhood standards, she declared, skipping introductions. I looked at my property, then at hers across the creek, then back at her. Ma'am, I appreciate the concern, but I'm not in your HOA. Her smile could have frozen coffee. We'll see about that. That was 18 months ago. What followed was a masterclass in psychological warfare. Karen timed my work schedule with military precision, photographed every visitor, and even bought binoculars. She'd appear at her window whenever I fired up my tools, arms crossed, radiating disapproval across 47 feet of creek. The tipping point came during Emma's 16th birthday, BBQ, just friends, food, and music, until 9:30 p.m. Perfectly legal under county noise ordinances. Karen called the police. Twice. Both times, officers found 0 violations. One even grabbed a burger, saying it was the tamest disturbance he'd seen all week. The next morning, Emma found a violation notice tucked under my windshield wiper on expensive legal paper that felt wrong between my fingers. It listed my workshop, garden fence, and gravel driveway as unapproved exterior modifications. $500 fines each. Dad, Emma said, reading the document like it might bite her. This woman has seriously lost her mind. Karen was betting I'd fold just like every other working-class family she'd bullied. Pay up, tear down my workshop, and submit to her suburban police state. She'd done her homework on intimidation tactics, but failed basic research 101. If she'd checked county records, she'd have seen my property was intentionally excluded from her HOA exclusion that would eventually dismantle her entire empire. But narcissists don't research, they attack. I poured another cup of coffee, walked to my fence line, and stared across Willow Creek at Karen's perfect house with its perfectly corrupt foundation. Lady, I told the morning air, you just declared war on the wrong veteran. The creek kept flowing, indifferent to human drama. 3 days later, Karen launched her opening salvo with all the precision of a suburban missile strike. A clear pattern emerged. Karen targeted working families who couldn't afford long, expensive, legal battles while conveniently ignoring violations by her wealthier neighbors. The irony. While she spent a fortune hiring lawyers and printing glossy violation notices, she was also quietly building my case for me. Every letter, every phone call, every attempted intimidation was documented and filed away. The creek kept flowing between our properties, a natural boundary that no amount of legal bluffing could move. Karen thought she was fighting a simple property dispute. She had no idea she'd just handed me the ammunition to destroy her entire empire. The sledgehammer in legal. Letterhead. 2 weeks after my courthouse visit, a thick envelope from associates landed in my mailbox. It carried the weight of expensive intimidation. Inside was a 4-page cease and desist, a masterpiece of legal theater, full of whereas and heretofore, demanding I immediately stop all unauthorized activities and submit to HOA jurisdiction. The kicker. They claimed my property was a continuing nuisance, hurting home values, and demanded I grant them access to install boundary markers on my land. Translation. They wanted permission to trespass so they could prove I was trespassing. In the Army, we called this escalation through paperwork. When someone can't win through legitimate channels, they bury you in official-looking nonsense, hoping you'll give up from exhaustion. Calling in reinforcements, I wasn't about to roll over. I contacted Janet Reeves, a local attorney who specializes in veterans' rights and has a reputation for eating bullies for breakfast. She skimmed Karen's legal threat, then actually laughed out loud. Garrett, she just handed us a harassment case on a silver platter. Janet's counter cease and desist was pure legal poetry. 3 paragraphs, citing property rights law, harassment statutes, and a warning that further contact would result in immediate legal action. She even added a reminder. Demanding access to private property without legal authority is attempted trespass. Karen's public panic. Karen's response was predictably unhinged. Within days, she called an emergency HOA meeting to address the boundary dispute crisis. The community center buzzed with nervous energy as she delivered her gospel of property value panic. She even had charts showing how my illegal business operation was supposedly tanking home equity. The accusation stung because it was partially true. I did sometimes use my workshop for contract jobs. But what Karen didn't understand is that home-based businesses are perfectly legal when they're licensed and zoned properly. And mine was both. Facts never stopped a good propaganda campaign. Karen's whisper network went into overdrive. Neighbors started getting concerned. Citizen updates about the unlicensed contractor operating next to their children. The county inspector, then county code enforcement, showed up at my door, responding to multiple anonymous complaints about zoning violations. The inspector, a tired-looking man named Phillips, spent 30 minutes reviewing everything, then shook his head. Whoever's filing these complaints is wasting everyone's time. Your setup is cleaner than most commercial operations I inspect. The smoking gun. Karen wasn't done. My security cameras installed after the first violation notice. Something incredible. Her brother-in-law Rick crept onto my property at dawn, placing orange survey stakes in strategic spots. The footage clearly showed him measuring distances, then deliberately positioning the stakes to make it appear my workshop encroached on HOA territory. When I confronted him, he stammered something about preliminary measurements and fled, like a teenager caught spray painting a wall. Escalating intimidation. Emma began feeling unsafe walking to the bus stop. She'd noticed Karen timing her daily surveillance drives to match Emma's schedule. One morning, Emma found Karen parked at the creek bridge, snapping photos with a telephoto lens like some suburban paparazzi. "Dad, this is getting seriously creepy," she told me over breakfast. That was the moment I knew. Karen had crossed the line from harassment into outright intimidation. My old platoon sergeant always said, "Document everything. Crazy people will hang themselves if you give them enough rope." And Karen was weaving her own legal noose, one paranoid move at a time. The neighborhood turns the community Facebook group, Willowbrook Neighbors, became a war zone. Karen's supporters posted about community standards and property values. A growing number of residents, however, began sharing their own HOA horror stories. The comment threads read like a civil war fought in emojis and passive-aggressive suburban language. Then came the bombshell. Mrs. Patterson quietly revealed she'd been recording Karen's HOA meetings for years just in case. "Honey," she said, pouring tea with the steady hands of someone who'd survived 8 decades of neighborhood drama, "I've got recordings that would curl your hair." That's when I realized Karen hadn't just picked a fight with me. She'd picked a fight with the entire neighborhood's collective memory of her abuse. The lawsuit. Karen's nuclear option arrived one Thursday morning when a sheriff's deputy knocked on my door. He handed me papers for a $47,000 lawsuit. The complaint was pure fantasy, claiming I'd automatically agreed to HOA membership by simply owning property within a 5-mile radius of her subdivision. She demanded immediate compliance with all HOA rules, an injunction banning further property modifications, and enough legal fees to buy a new car. Sitting in Janet's office, morning light pouring in, I watched her expression shift from concern to barely contained rage. "Garrett," she said, flipping through Karen's legal fiction, "this woman is either completely delusional or she's running the most expensive bluff in county history." "This woman is either completely delusional," Janet said, "or she's running the most expensive bluff in county history." But Janet's deep dive into Karen's background uncovered something far worse than simple delusion. Court records revealed Karen had filed 6 previous boundary disputes over the past decade. 3 families had moved away rather than face the crushing cost of legal battles. The Rodriguez family, just as Mrs. Patterson had mentioned, actually lost their home to foreclosure after legal fees became unmanageable. Karen wasn't just a neighborhood nuisance. She was a serial predator, targeting working-class families with surgical precision. Her pattern was chilling: identify families who couldn't afford drawn-out litigation, manufacture violations, escalate legal pressure until they complied, or fled wealthier neighbors. They somehow never faced the same scrutiny even when they committed identical violations. While I was still processing the scope of Karen's operation, she launched a media offensive with the precision of a political campaign. Local TV news stations got calls warning of a property value crisis threatening responsible homeowners. Karen staged photo ops posing while trimming hedges, pointing dramatically at my workshop as if it were a nuclear waste facility.